Breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
Petition to declare George Soros terrorist needs 55,000 more signatures. Share this now. George Soros, the infamous billionaire behind Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and most of the other radical liberal groups in this country, has recently been unmasked. An official petition, started on a Gov website, has already gotten nearly 50,000 signatures to declare him a terrorist. If the petition receives 100,000 signatures by September 19, it will be submitted to the White House for an official response within 60 days. It's high time that this criminal gets thrown in jail, and now with President Trump in office, it's the perfect opportunity for us to take action. The petition, which thousands have already signed, asks for George Soros to be declared a terrorist. But that's not all. It also asks for the government to seize all of his organizations and their assets under RICO and the laws, which will put a stop to the mayhem he's causing on a global scale. The petition states, whereas George Soros has willfully and on an ongoing basis attempted to destabilize and otherwise commit acts of sedition against the United States and its citizens, has created and funded dozens, and probably hundreds, of discrete organizations whose sole purpose is to apply Alinsky model terrorist tactics to facilitate the collapse of the systems and constitutional government of the United States, and has developed unhealthy and undue influence over the entire Democrat Party and a large portion of the U.S. federal government. The DOJ should immediately declare George Soros and all of his organizations and staff members to be domestic terrorists, and have all of his personal and organizational wealth and assets seized under civil asset forfeiture law. It's about time that somebody start a petition to arrest this scumbag. Over the past several decades, he's leveraged his tremendous wealth to destabilize Western countries, sow the seeds of racial division, and create massive economic destruction. For those of you who are just hearing of this man, it's difficult to overstate his influence on politics in both Europe, Asia, and especially the Middle East. Discover the Networks as a phenomenal introduction to him, and this is just scratching the surface. Starting in 1994, Soros's Open Society foundations and a few other leftist foundations began bankrolling front groups and so-called experts whose aim was to persuade Congress to swallow the fiction that millions of Americans were clamoring for campaign finance reform. This deceptive strategy was the brainchild of Sean Treglia, a former program officer with the Pew Charitable Trusts. 228 Between 1994 and 2004. Some $140 million of foundation cash was used to promote campaign finance reform. Nearly 90% of this amount derived from just 8 foundations, one of which was the Open Society Foundations, which contributed $12.6 million to the cause. 229 Among the major recipients of these OSF funds were such pro-reform organizations as the Alliance for Better Campaigns, $650,000, the Brennan Center for Justice, more than $3.3 million, the Center for Public Integrity, $1.7 million, the Center for Responsive Politics, $75,000, Common Cause, $625,000, Democracy 21, $300,000, Public Campaign, $1.3 million, and Public Citizen $275,000. 230. Over the years, Soros has used his massive wealth to push a liberal agenda and organize terrorists and protesters. Here are a few of his achievements, if you can call them that, over the past 20 years. Organizations that accuse America of violating the civil rights and liberties of many of its residents. The Arab American Institute impugns many of the sweeping and unreasonable post-9/11 counterterrorism measures that have unfairly targeted Arab Americans. 46. The Bill of Rights Defense Committee has persuaded the political leadership in more than 400 American cities and counties to pledge non-compliance with the anti-terrorism measure known as the Patriot Act, on grounds that the legislation tramples on people's civil liberties. 47. Organizations that depict America as a nation whose enduring racism must be counterbalanced by racial and ethnic preferences in favor of non-whites. The Mexican-American Legal Defense and Educational Fund calls itself the nation's leading Latino legal civil rights organization. 48. The Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law provides legal services to address racial discrimination. 49. The NAACP and its Legal Defense and Educational Fund uses litigation, advocacy, and public education to promote structural changes and achieve racial justice in the United States. 50. The National Council of La Raza charges that discrimination severely limits the economic and social opportunities available to Hispanic Americans. 51. Organizations that specifically portray the American criminal justice system as racist and inequitable. The Sentencing Project asserts that prison sentencing patterns discriminate against non-whites, and seeks to reduce the reliance on incarceration. 52. Critical Resistance contends that crime stems from inequality and powerlessness, which can be rectified through wholesale redistribution of wealth. 53. The Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights charges that criminal laws are enforced in a manner that is massively and pervasively biased. 54. Organizations that call for massive social change, and for the recruitment and training of activist leaders to help foment that change. The Center for Community Change is dedicated to finding the progressive stars of tomorrow and preparing them to lead. 55. The Gamaliel Foundation teaches social change techniques and methodologies. 56. The Ruckus Society promotes nonviolent direct action against unjust institutions and policies. 57. The American Institute for Social Justice aims to transform poor communities by agitating for increased government spending on social welfare programs. 58. The Institute for America's Future regularly convenes and educates progressive leaders, organizations, candidates, opinion makers, and activists. 59. People for the American Way, founded by television producer Norman Lear to oppose the allegedly growing influence of the religious right, seeks to cultivate new generations of leaders and activists who will promote progressive values. 60. Democracy for America operates an academy that has taught more than 10,000 recruits nationwide how to focus, network, and train grassroots activists in the skills and strategies to take back our country. 61. The Midwest Academy trains radical activists in the tactics of direct action, confrontation, and intimidation. Author Stanley Kurtz has described this academy as a crypto-socialist organization that was arguably the most influential force in community organizing from the 70s through the 90s. 62. Organizations that disparage capitalism while promoting a dramatic expansion of social welfare programs funded by ever-escalating taxes. The Center for Economic and Policy Research asserts that the welfare state has softened the impact of the worst excesses and irrationalities of a market system and its injustices. 63. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities advocates greater tax expenditures on such assistance programs as Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, food stamps, and low-income housing initiatives. 64. The Ella Baker Center for Human Rights was founded by the revolutionary communist Van Jones. This anti-poverty organization claims that decades of disinvestment in our cities, coupled with America's allegedly imperishable racism, have led to despair and homelessness. 65. The M. Lazarus Fund. In 1996, George Soros said he was appalled by the recently signed welfare reform law that empowered states to limit legal immigrants' access to public assistance. In response to this mean-spirited attack on immigrants, he launched an Open Society Foundation's project known as the M. Lazarus Fund and endowed it with $50 million. 66. Soros has spent billions of dollars laying the groundwork for social disorder, and believe me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This man is a threat to all of Western civilization, and has openly declared that he hates America and wants to destroy it from within. If this man is allowed to continue his sick agenda, and is allowed to pass his wealth down to his children who also plan on doing so, expect groups like #BLM, Antifa, and CARE to continue popping up all over the United States. George Soros is a traitor of the worst kind, and with President Trump in office, Now is finally our chance to throw this man in prison and end his corrupt legacy of terror. This petition must reach every single patriot in this great nation, otherwise, in a few years' time, we may not have this chance to end Soros and his leftist organizations ever again. Thank you for watching this video. What do you think about this? Share this on Facebook and Twitter along with your comments.